How the best leaders inspire others. Hi, I'm Teacher Luke, and welcome to this story on how the best leaders inspire others. Chapter 1. Why Inspiration Matters More Than Authority. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever had a boss, a teacher, or even a parent who told you what to do, but you didn't feel motivated to do it? Now, think of another person, maybe a coach, a mentor, or even a friend, who made you want to do something, not because you had to, but because you believed in it. Which experience felt better? Which one made you give more of yourself? Write your answer in the comments before we continue. This is the heart of leadership, the difference between authority and inspiration. Authority comes from a position, a title, or a role. Inspiration comes from a vision, a purpose, and a feeling that connects people. Authority can force obedience, but inspiration creates loyalty. Let me tell you a quick story from my own life. Years ago, when I was a teenager, I worked at a small cafe near my home. The manager had authority, of course. He was in charge, and his job was to make sure we did ours. But the way he used his authority was exhausting. He barked orders like a sergeant in the army. Clean the tables. Move faster. Don't talk to customers too long. Every shift felt like a punishment. Yes, we followed his instructions, but only because we didn't want to lose our jobs. We gave the minimum. No one smiled genuinely. No one cared much about the cafe's success. We did the work because we had to, not because we wanted to. That's what authority without inspiration looks like. It creates fear, stress, and short-term compliance, but it never builds real commitment. Now, let me contrast that with another experience from my teaching career. A few years later, I began teaching English to international students. At first, I was nervous. I was young, I didn't have much experience, and I was worried that students might not respect me. But something interesting happened. Instead of just saying, "Open your books, turn to page 45, I started sharing my personal love for the English language. I told stories about how books in English opened new worlds to me, how films and songs made me feel connected to other cultures, and how learning English had given me opportunities I never expected. The students leaned in, their eyes lit up. They weren't just learning grammar rules, they were catching the excitement, the why behind the lesson. They began to participate more, ask questions, and even stay after class just to talk. What changed? My authority as a teacher didn't suddenly increase, but my ability to inspire them did. I shared a vision. English was not just a subject, but a tool for life, a bridge to the world. And when students believed in that vision, they wanted to learn, not because I said so, but because they felt so. This difference explains why some leaders are remembered long after they're gone, while others fade into history. Authority can get people to act, but inspiration makes them care. Think about it. A police officer can make you stop your car with authority, but only a leader who inspires you can make you willingly give your time, your energy, and even your heart. Authority creates rules. Inspiration creates meaning. Authority demands obedience. Inspiration invites commitment. In the workplace, authority might get people to finish tasks, but inspiration gets them to innovate, to stay late when necessary, and to bring their best ideas. In families, authority may create discipline, but inspiration builds trust and love. In classrooms, authority may keep students quiet, but inspiration makes them curious. Here's a simple test you can use to know whether you are leading with authority or with inspiration. Ask yourself, if I lost my position, would people still follow me? If the answer is no, then you are leading only with authority. But if the answer is yes, if people would still listen, still care, still believe in what you stand for, then you are leading with inspiration. Looking back at my own journey, I realized that my cafe manager taught me what not to do. He showed me that authority without inspiration feels empty. My students, on the other hand, showed me what happens when you share your passion and vision. They gave more of themselves, not because they had to, but because they wanted to. And here's the funny thing. When you inspire others, you actually gain more natural authority. People trust you, respect you, and listen to you, not because of your title, but because of your why. So remember this. Authority may control hands, but inspiration moves hearts. And in the end, people give more when their hearts are engaged. Now let me ask you again, who inspired you the most in your life? Was it a teacher, a boss, a parent, or maybe a friend? Write it in the comments. Sharing your story might inspire someone else listening today. Chapter 2. The Golden Circle of Leadership. Let me begin with two simple questions. Why do you do what you do every day? And why should anyone care? Take a moment, pause this if you need to, and write your answer in the comments. Most people, when asked this, will talk about what they do. I'm a teacher, I'm a manager, I'm a student. Some may even say how they do it. I work hard, I use creative methods, I try to be efficient, but very few people, very few leaders begin with why. And that's where the difference lies. This idea is often shown through something called the Golden Circle. It explains why some leaders inspire us deeply, while others only instruct or command. Imagine three circles, one inside the other. The outer circle is what, the middle circle is how, and the inner circle, the very center, is why. Every organization and every person knows what they do. That's the easy part. Some know how they do it. That's their method, their system, their strategy. But very few know why they do what they do. And by why, we don't mean to make money or to get good grades. Those are results. The real why is about purpose. It's about belief. It's about the reason you get out of bed in the morning. Leaders who inspire always start from the inside of the circle. They start with why. Think about the difference this makes. Most leaders or companies communicate from the outside in. They start with what they do. We make computers. We sell shoes. We teach English, then they explain how they do it. We use the best materials. We have experienced staff. We care about quality. But the most inspiring leaders flip it. They start with why. We believe in challenging the usual way of doing things. We believe in creativity and freedom. Then they explain how. We design beautifully simple tools that make life easier. And only then do they say what. We happen to make computers. Want to buy one? That's why some companies don't just have customers. They have fans. People don't simply buy their products. They believe in what those companies stand for. Let me share a story from my teaching life. Early in my career, I used to start my lessons with what. Today we are going to study the past perfect tense. You can imagine the looks on my students' faces. Eyes down, heavy sighs, no one was excited about another grammar rule. Later, I learned to start with why. Have you ever tried to explain a story in English and you couldn't make clear which event happened first? Today, I'm going to show you a way to tell stories in English that makes people really understand you. Do you see the difference? In the first case, I started with what. In the second, I started with why. And suddenly, students leaned forward. They wanted to learn because they understood the purpose. There's also a scientific reason this works. The way the Golden Circle is structured matches the way our brains are structured. The outer part of our brain, the neocortex, is responsible for rational thinking. For what? But the inner part, the limbic brain, is responsible for feelings, trust, and decision-making. For why? When leaders talk only about what, they are speaking to the rational brain. But when they talk about why, They go deeper. They reach the emotional brain, the part that drives real decisions. That's why people often say, I don't know why, but it just feels right. That's the limbic brain at work. So, what's the lesson for us? If you want to inspire, don't start with tasks, start with beliefs. Don't start with instructions, start with vision. If you're a teacher, don't just say, open your books. Say, I want to show you something that will make you more confident in English. If you're a manager, don't just say, meet this deadline. Say, if we succeed, this project will change the way people live. If you're a parent, don't just say, do your homework. Say, when you learn this, you'll have the power to create your own future. Looking back, I realized that every time I failed as a teacher or a leader, it was because I started with what? I focused on the rules, the structures, the tasks. But every time I connected with my students and saw them light up, it was because I started with why. The Golden Circle is not just a model for companies or famous leaders. It's a guide for anyone who wants to inspire others, teachers, parents, leaders, and even friends. So here's my challenge for you. Think about something important you do in your life. Maybe it's your job, your studies, or even your role in your family. Now, instead of saying what you do, try to explain why you do it. Write it in the comments. Share your why. You might be surprised by how powerful it feels, because in the end, people don't buy what you do. They buy why you do it. And when your why is clear, others will be inspired to follow. Chapter 3: Creating Loyalty and Lasting Impact. Let me start with a simple question. Why do you follow the people you admire most? Is it because they pay you, because they tell you what to do, or because you believe in them? Think about your answer, and if you like, share it in the comments. The truth is, the best leaders don't just get people to obey. They create something much deeper: loyalty. And loyalty is what makes teams stay strong in hard times, what makes families support each other through struggles, and what makes students continue learning even when it is difficult. Authority can win obedience for a short time. Inspiration can win loyalty for a lifetime. And loyalty leads to something even greater: lasting impact. Imagine this. A boss tells their team, stay late tonight or you'll lose your job. People stay late, yes, but they are counting the minutes, waiting to escape, and secretly planning to leave the company. That is obedience. Now imagine another boss who says, I know this project is tough, but if we finish it well, it could really change the future of our company and even help our customers live better lives. I'll stay here with you until the end, and we'll do it together. That is inspiration. People don't just stay because they have to. They stay because they want to. That is loyalty. The difference is huge. Obedience disappears when the pressure is gone. Loyalty stays even when times are hard. But how do leaders create loyalty? It begins with trust. Trust is not built by shouting, by punishing, or by making people afraid. Trust is built when people feel safe, respected, and valued. A leader who admits mistakes, who listens to others, and who shows consistency will earn trust. When people trust you, they don't just listen to your words. They believe in your intentions. They know you want the best for them, not just for yourself. And that trust grows into loyalty. And loyalty often shows itself in small, invisible ways. The employee who defends their company in a conversation with friends, the student who recommends their teacher to others, the child who repeats the lessons of a parent long after leaving home. These are signs of true loyalty, and they cannot be forced. They can only be inspired. Let me share a personal story. Years ago, I had a student named Maria. She was shy, nervous, and often quiet in class. Many teachers before me had simply told her, speak more, be confident. participate. But this didn't help. It only made her more anxious. I decided to try a different approach. Instead of pushing her with authority, I worked on building trust. I asked her about her life, her interests, her favorite books and films. I praised her small efforts and showed her I believed in her, even when she doubted herself. Slowly, she began to open up. One day, she gave a full presentation in front of the class, something she once said she would never do. And do you know what? The other students cheered for her, not because I told them to, but because they were inspired by her courage. Maria's loyalty to learning grew, not because of pressure, but because of trust. And years later, she still writes to me sometimes, telling me how English has opened new doors for her. That is the kind of impact that lasts. A leader's true success is not measured by how many people follow orders today, but by how many lives are changed tomorrow. Think about great leaders from history. The ones we remember are not just those with power. We remember those who inspired movements, who gave people hope, who left ideas that continued long after they were gone. Impact is not about control. It's about planting seeds. Seeds of belief, of courage, of possibility. And when those seeds grow in others, the leader's influence continues, sometimes for generations. You don't need to be famous to create loyalty and lasting impact. You can do it in small, daily ways. As a teacher, when you believe in a struggling student. As a manager, when you support your team instead of blaming them. As a parent, when you show patience and encouragement instead of only discipline. As a friend, when you stand by someone even when it's inconvenient. These acts may seem small, but they stay in people's hearts. Years later, they will remember the person who inspired them, who believed in them, who gave them courage. When I think about my own life, I realize the people who changed me most were not the ones with the highest authority. They were the ones who believed in me, trusted me, and inspired me. My best teachers made me feel capable. My best managers made me feel valued, and my best friends made me feel understood. That is what I try to pass on to my students now. I don't just want them to pass exams or memorize grammar. I want them to feel that learning English gives them confidence, opportunities, and freedom. If I can give them that feeling, maybe years later they'll still remember my classes. Not for the worksheets, but for the inspiration. So remember this. Authority controls for the moment, but inspiration creates loyalty that lasts. And when you inspire loyalty, your impact continues long after the immediate task is finished. Here's my final question for you. Who in your life has earned your loyalty, not just your obedience? Maybe it's a teacher, a coach, a leader, or even a family member. Share it in the comments. Because when we talk about those who inspire us, we pass on their impact, and that's how true leadership never dies.